So that takes us up to the seizure, and I had several doctor appointments after that, and that's when my doctor discovered that I was bleeding internally. So they talked me into the colonoscopy. I didn't want to do it. They explained to me what it was. I thought, no way, I don't want to do that. But I went ahead and did it, and it was all paid for by insurance. And it was kind of funny. You have to take, I believe it's a Suraprep, if I remember right. This would have been later. This would have been a couple months after the seizure, and you got to take this Suraprep and not eat, and then take more of it, and it cleans you out. And I had a lot of toilet time that night, during the night, and then I went in the next day to do it, and surprisingly, that Suraprep has a tremendously relaxing something to it, because I was really nervous going in to have this situation, and I just remember after I started taking that, I was just calm and relaxed, just kind of like, yeah, just melting in my chair, and that was great. That was a good thing. It went okay. I didn't have any side effects or anything from it, like pain. I guess you can, hurt the next day. I didn't, and when I had a terrible time waking up. They didn't get me woke up until like 7 o'clock at night or something. And when I was laying there, and this little girl was poking me, time to wake up, time to wake up. And I kind of look at her and I think, why is there a little girl in my room here? And it wasn't. It was a very petite young woman nurse. Very petite. She was very tiny. But to me, she just looked like a tiny little girl. Like, what are you doing here? Anyway, so that was kind of a nice experience. They just discovered that I'd been bleeding a little bit in my stomach because I was taking a lot of ibuprofen back then for arthritis pain, and they made me stop doing that, and I did. But then I eventually just started doing it again because I just couldn't stand the arthritis pain. But I never had bleeding problems after that from the ibuprofen abuse that I talked about in my last video. So at the time of the colonoscopy, and even after that, I started noticing an awful lot of pain in my right hip. My right hip had always been giving me pain for quite a few years, but now I was having a lot of joint pain. I was having trouble walking. So when I had that seizure and fell down, I probably aggravated the arthritis in my right hip. And I have pictures of the x-ray of the hip, and if I can find them, I'll put them up right about here, and you can see how badly my hip was deteriorated. And you could even see some in my left hip, which is now becoming deteriorated too, and I need a second hip replacement. So I went in on January 2nd of 2018. The sous chef from the restaurant drove me in at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was in the room. I was supposed to go into surgery at 9, but they postponed it till 10. And by the time they wheeled me out of there, I was just higher than a kite. I was really buzzed on all the stuff. And one of the things that bothered me to think that they're going to practically be cutting my leg off to do this. That wasn't fun to think, but they needed to do a spinal on me too, and I hate the thought of anything being put into my back like that, into your spine. It actually doesn't go into your spine, but the way they explained it to me. So I was terrified of having that spinal. So they had me pretty doped up, and the last thing I remember, they had me on the table and they were holding me sitting up, and they were getting ready to give me the spinal. My arms are out like this, and that's the last thing I remember. I don't remember anything else. Hours later, when I woke up, and I was in a lot of pain, but I was only in the hospital for 30 hours, and then they sent me home. And it was a long recovery, and I was on opiates the whole time, recovering from this. And I just sat at home. I just laid in bed and watched the old Emergency series. I bought those DVDs a long time ago, and I'd watch the Emergency episodes. One memory that sticks out in my mind, and this was when the little I call them little girls, but the little physical therapist girls. They were young women, early 20s. That's why I call them little girls. But they came to get me walking for the first time. So they got me turned into bed, and then stood up, and I had a walker, of course. And they stand me up, and they want to walk me to the door and then back. So as I start to go to the door very slowly, bearing weight on my new hip, I started getting sick. And by the time I got back to the bed, I was like, oh, I'm going to throw up. And I was. I and I did it right in front of these two little girls, two physical therapist girls, and I was so embarrassed. And then they got me a bag, and I slept the entire night holding that bag, right like this, because I just thought I was going to throw up again. It was the medication that did that. So I recovered from the total hip replacement pretty well. I had to take 2 months off of work and live on my savings, and I was perfectly okay. And then September of 2019, I had been moving furniture around here in my house, rearranging things, and apparently I had hurt myself that night, and I ended up detaching a rib in my back, and it hurt so bad I couldn't stand to sit in a chair like this. The only thing I could really do was just stand up, because otherwise it just hurt so bad. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to work that day, and I thought I was having a heart attack. So again, I called my sister, and I said, I'm having a lot of chest pains. I don't know what's going on. It's been happening since I got up this morning. She says, you need to call an ambulance right now, because you might be having a heart attack. And I kind of thought so too. So she called the ambulance. They came and got me. They hooked me up to all kinds of things, and they said that it appeared I was having some sort of heart problem. So they took me in, and I spent 8 hours in the emergency room while they put me through every test known to man, MRIs and all that stuff. And come to find out that I had detached a rib from my back. And I didn't even know any such thing even existed. I had no idea that you could do that, but that's what it was. And those muscles in there, they're just spasming, they're just really angry, and that's what was causing so much pain. So they put me on a spasm medication, but they also kept me overnight. And I was in the same hospital, the same floor that I was in 2016 with the seizure situation. And I was very close to that room that I stayed in, room 2013, when I was recovering from the seizure. So they sent me home then the next day, and everything got back to normal. 2019, and they had told me before they released me that day, the next day, that they had detected a hernia. One of the machines, the MRI or whatever it was, had detected that I have a pretty big hernia, and I had no idea that I had a hernia. So I had an appointment with my doctor pretty quick after that, and he said, yeah, you got a pretty big hernia down there, and it goes all the way down, and that it needs to be fixed. But I was not having any pain. I don't know how it happened. If maybe when I fell down during the seizure, maybe that's what did it. I don't know. And by the way, the seizure, no, not the seizure. Well, the 6 days I spent in the hospital, 3 in ICU and 3 upstairs, probably cost well over $100,000 at least. At least, must have. I don't know. But I didn't have to pay any of that. I had pretty good insurance. I was still on Medicaid at that time, and just about the time I got home, was shipped home from the seizure stay in the hospital, I got a letter from the Medicaid saying, "Oh, we're sorry, but you make too much money now. We won't be able to insure you anymore." So I lost the Medicaid and ended up having to buy very, very expensive private insurance, which I did, and that's what paid for the hip replacement surgery, which was close to $60,000. And I ended up getting a bill for $22,000 out of pocket for that stupid surgery. And that wiped me out pretty bad. But life goes on. And then finally we get down to my last hospital stay and surgery, which happened during COVID. And it was really hard. That was for the hernia surgery. The detached rib was in September of 19, and then in 20, of course, at this time in 20, March of 20, we went into the COVID crud, and I had the surgery scheduled for, I believe it was June or so in 20, but then it got postponed because of the COVID stuff. But I did go in and have that hernia surgery, and that was one of the most painful recoveries I've ever dealt with. Because, like I said, it went all the way downstairs. And it's been great. It's worked out great. I've not had any pain or any side effects from it. But it took a long time to get it, and the recovery was just awful. As long as you just laid in bed and did nothing, didn't move, it was perfectly okay. But as the minute you go to, get out of bed and walk around, which you have to do for a lot of reasons, and using a walker, it hurt so bad, even with taking opiates like 4 times a day. I was living on them for a while, and it was really painful. But now everything's good. It's been quite a while since I've been to the hospital, and hopefully I'll never have to go again. There's very little chance of that happening, of course. So that is my medical history. The last 10 years of my life have been very, very busy with surgeries and hospital stays and all that. So comment down below. Let me know what if you've had any of these things and dealt with any of these things. I'm sure I'm actually pretty lucky at this age to have not had to go through, disease, cancer, heart problems, and all that stuff. I know a lot of people younger than me are dealing with cancer and heart disease and other things like that. I've been pretty fortunate and blessed that my medical history has not been really all that bad. It's bad for me, but it's really not all that bad compared to a lot of people younger than me. So anyway, that's it for now. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.